Alright, moving on to chamfering. Chamfering is a pretty important element to this. I take quite a bit of time on my chamfering. You want a 10-degree bevel on a chamfering. This is it's getting kind of wore out, but it's a diamond stone. It's a oval shape or egg shape, whatever you want to call it. And I generally use the top half of it for the most of my porting, on the top of the port, and the bottom half for the bottom of the port, and just kind of roll around the sides. And about a 10-degree angle is what you're looking for, and maybe 30 thousandths or so. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing here. And I know you ain't going to be able to see all this really well, but hopefully I've explained what I'm working on. Now the stone, it's turning crossways to the cylinder, and that can leave some little ridges or fine ridges, fine lines. And I go back after that. This is 400 grit emery paper, and my finger will roll into the port a little bit and clean out any small fine burrs or ridges or anything. And you can feel it when you start that you're removing something, and then pretty soon it feels pretty smooth and not much resistance anymore, and you pretty well have it at that point. And again, this isn't going to do anything to the plating whatsoever. It's just not coarse enough to remove it. And the exhaust port is by far the most important port to really have right, because it's generally the widest port, and it needs to have a little shape to it, chamfer it out really well so we're not snagging rings in it. The transfer ports are generally narrow enough to where they're not ever going to be a problem as far as snagging a ring, but you certainly can make them too wide that they can snag a ring, where you could get into that ring end pin and the ring will bounce in there and snap right off. And the other thing that poor chamfering or a flat exhaust port will cause is ring clipping, and that's really close to a ring snagging, but it doesn't actually snag. It just keeps getting clipped over and over and over, and it takes the square edge off from the ring, and that's generally from poor shape or poor chamfering. So now if I take bare finger and I just real light just rub across this, my finger will fall into the port approximately as much as a ring will fall in there, and it should be very smooth. You shouldn't be feeling any kind of a ridge. If you press a little harder you can feel a ridge, but it's just a smooth feel over the top, and you don't want to feel any kind of ridge. If you do, then go back and work that area a little bit more, you know. So the other thing is that we're going to put a new piston in this saw. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to deglaze it now, or hone it, you know, however word you want to use for what you know. We're not trying to bore it. We're not trying to make anything bigger. All we're trying to do is take off the absolute very, very smooth finish so that the rings can actually wear in and seat in. And if you don't hone it, it just takes forever for the rings to seat in. And so I generally always hone them. We still have this scratch up in the top exhaust port. I touched it a little bit with that emery paper. I can't even hardly feel it. I don't try to hone those scratches out. If you're going to remove that much plating to get those scratches out of that plating, you are going to be way oversized. Your piston's going to be loose. You're better off to leave any of that type of damage in the cylinder and leave it alone. Don't mess with it. Make it smooth, you know, so it's not a raised ridge or anything like that. And then just leave the scratch in there. You're not going to lose anything in compression with those tiny scratches. So you can use a straight hone, a straight stone hone if you want. I don't have one here. I've got them at the saw shop, but I don't have any here at home. I like to use a ball hone anyway. A lot of guys say that ball hones destroy cylinders. And they do if you stick it in there and hold it in there for 5 minutes. So will a straight stone hone. So the thing about a ball hone is that even if the cylinder is not perfectly straight, all that kind of stuff, if it's not perfect, a stone hone will only hit the high spots and it will never get into a lower spot. And it also, the stones also fall into the ports a little bit and actually help with the chamfering. So it's just a few turns is all you need to do this. Don't get carried away. It's just taking the smooth glaze off. No reason to do anything more than that. If you're doing more than that, you're taking too much. If I've gotten rid of any kind of witness marks in here from the original piston with that glazing stuff, I've put just a very fine, you can't nowhere near feel them, scratches in there to allow those rings to break in much quicker, get the power out of the saw. This all glazes over and goes away within a few tanks of gas, 2-3 tanks, break-in period. And from there on, the rings don't wear, nearly as fast or quick or anything. And they have to seat in. Anytime that I'm changing the rings, I'll hone the cylinder just a little bit, get rid of that glaze. So this one's ready the cylinder itself's ready to go back together. We got to do some muffler work, some port matching yet. The intake boot matched really well, so I don't have to do any work there. So we got to match up the muffler to this, and we'll get into the muffler next.